here. All
Okay.
right, we got some audio.
Unmuted.
We got all the audio here. Turn that down a little. All right. Bear with me just a second. We are working with half a laptop here.
Yeah, George Emerson.
He did. He sent it to us.
Right. 2 days.
All right.
It was more than 2 days ago.
So I think we got YouTube and Instagram and it looks like Facebook is up now. All right.
Well, are we up and running?
I think so.
Wow.
I thought that last week too, and we're actually a couple minutes off in a few of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Looks like
All right. Well, welcome everybody to another ZF8 Motorsport live chat, round 37.
Off on date and time at the moment, but
We apologize. We had a national holiday yesterday, and it threw some schedules into disarray, so we bumped it till today. So
it's weird. Daycares apparently weren't open yesterday.
hopefully everyone was able to get the notice, and hopefully you're here joining us as always. But and we're doing it a little bit later at 11 a.m. So, but maybe we picked up some new people.
Yeah.
For the time change, I don't know. So as always, this is a question and answer session. We're here to answer any of your questions, specifically 034 and automotive related. We're happy to talk about any topic really. You know, it's kind of a one-way conversation, but if you don't agree with something we said or you want additional clarification, then let us know and we'll be happy to respond. So yeah, just go ahead and put your questions into whatever message window you see there, whether you're on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, and our team of transcribers will pick your message up and put it into our handy dandy question ticketing system.
Interweb machines.
Yeah. You don't have to be nice. You guys get paid to just have people be mean to you.
Sorry.
Part of the contract.
It's in the.
No, just kidding. We do like being treated well, and so actually on that topic, I wanted to give a shout out. I don't know if he's on, but Brian Hutchinson, wanted to give you a shout out. Brian was upset at us at some point, like 3-4 days ago, and left us some choice words, but gave a nice apology a few days later, and you know, that meant a lot to us. That's not something we see often. We obviously don't like getting bashed or called out. Certainly, if it's justified, we understand. But in this case, it didn't seem justified, and I think it's notable when someone realizes that or regrets something they did and is big enough to apologize. So I wanted to say thank you, Brian. It means a lot to us, and we'd like to get in touch with you. I think actually we must have your information because you're a customer. We'd like to send you some 034 Motorsport swag.
Yeah, as long as you bought from us directly, it wasn't a drop shop.
Yeah, no, either way, we can get in touch with them. But yeah, so cheers. I mean, send you some beer glasses, and we can have a beer. And we have a lot of drinking
virtual toast
stuff now. Coffee, beer. I think we have a insulated water jug of some kind. So thank you, Brian. All right, so let's get into some of these questions here.
I apologize. I'm in the midst of getting a laptop issue sorted, so I'm jumping in as I can.
All right, so someone is asking, why do you use single element filters? I see other companies such as CTS using dual element filters. Wouldn't more surface area equal more better? You would think so.
It's an intuitive guess, yeah.
It seems common sense would say that more element area is better. But we have talked about this a few times, and we really need to do some documentation around this because we do.
Say it's such a simple thing to video on the flow bench. I think we can do.
No, yeah,
like literally, like you don't have to like believe our numbers. We can show you real time kind of what they do.
So we we've done a flow test with CTS's air filter, and their air filter flows very poorly. Um, the problem is, not all air filter elements are created equal. You could actually create an air filter element that doesn't flow any air that looks like an air filter, right? And you could build.
We have one. I printed one.
You could build a whole air filter out of that, so that 100% of the surface of that is filter. But it's not a filter because it doesn't flow anything. It would just be paper with no holes in it. So somewhere along the line, there's that extreme, and then there's the filter media that we use, which provides the required level of filtering with the most peak optimum flow possible. That's how our filter is spec'd out. But if you go back towards the filter that looks like a filter but isn't, somewhere there's CTS's filter, which flows worse than ours, even though it has more surface area. And God only knows how much it actually filters. It could have not enough small holes and a couple really big holes so that big pieces go through, but the flow is still worse. So you can't judge a filter by how many extra little nooks and crannies of filter media it has. Now, we actually did a second data point. We did an experiment with our own air filter, our 4-inch air filter, which is a very good flowing air filter. Flows 600 plus horsepower easily with no restriction. And we had our filter vendor add the inverted filter portion in the end cap. So instead of having the rubber end cap, it was replaced with a cone filter element.
No other changes. That was it.
No other changes. Same media, same everything else, same size of everything. And on a flow bench, that air filter flowed worse than the normal air filter we supply.
Yeah, we actually sent that out to a third party to be fair.
Yeah.
That wasn't even done here.
Yeah. An independent company that does independent flow testing, because we really wanted to evaluate that. So it's not like we haven't looked into this. It's not like we haven't considered it. But there's so much more to an air filter than simply adding an extra cone to the end, like what CTS has done. I'm not trying to bash CTS, but objectively, the filter's not very good. And since you brought it up,
Well, and in this market, I think that's kind of one of the ones people are comparing to. It's like, oh, it's on the market. It's cheap. It's got a dual cone filter.
yeah.
It was pretty shocking how much less it was.
This is why we do engineering. This is why we do scientific testing. This is why we actually test these concepts out. We don't just take for granted that something looks like it flows more, so it must flow more. Unfortunately, there's a lot of companies in the industry that's how they do their engineering. And the other unfortunate side of that is a lot of people fall for it. They think that's actually better.
Yeah, well, it's that like I said earlier. It's that intuitive look at it. Like,
but common sense
filter. It must be have more area.
Yeah, I mean,
more flow.
We didn't build rockets that go into space or F1 cars off of common sense. Just you can't common sense a really fast car. There's people that try. You can see the efforts out there. So. Good question. We really need to produce some of these videos to kind of show some of the differences. But yeah, you can have two identical filters with the same dimensions and sizes, but the filter medias can have a lot of effect. The other side of it is you could have an air filter that flows a ton, but it doesn't filter anything. And so now you're ingesting dirt and dust into your engine. All that grit makes its way into the combustion chamber. It coats the cylinder walls, and you wear your rings out because you have all this foreign debris inside your motor.
Well, yeah, rings, turbo impellers, depending on
anything that requires
anything that you're drawing that air past.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think that's what. Next question. Someone's asking. I saw a video where both of you seemed to diss B8 manuals. As a 0-4 supporter, it seemed like a stab in the heart.
Oh no!
Why unload on the 6MT? Makes me not want to kit out other B with 0-4. Okay, well, listen. there was maybe some lighthearted dissing.
Yeah, and a lot of that is right. It's tongue in cheek. It's just
It's somewhat tongue in cheek. If you don't want to buy or support our products because of that, I'm sorry. That doesn't seem very logical to me. But the bottom line is we prefer DSGs. I like DSGs personally. I'm an expert at driving a manual transmission. I've driven many different cars, every kind of car you can imagine with a manual transmission. And I have lots of track time. I can speed shift. I can rev match. I can do all the things with a manual transmission. I can launch incredibly fast 60-foot times with incredibly difficult tilt and clutches, and I've spent time learning and mastering all that. So given all that, I prefer DSG given the technology, and as a company that engineers and creates products for these cars, it's kind of a panacea for us because we can control how the car shifts, how fast it shifts, how much power it holds. We can literally take a pressure plate and give it more clamping force in the software. So I think the other point that we were making in our comments was that we don't miss the days of trying to support our customers with manual transmissions and clutches and pressure plates that aren't DSG. You have to make some big compromises with manual transmissions. If you want it to hold more power, you have to remove the dual mass element in most cases. You have to greatly increase clamping force, which makes the pedal harder to push down and stresses out the rest of the components in the system. And then more importantly, you need to go with friction materials that have higher coefficient of friction. Those materials do not lend themselves to drivability. You also need to remove weak features like sprung hubs and pressure plates that have straps on them, because those things fail at higher power levels and RPM levels. It's the manual transmission life is a hard one. It's a tougher one, and you have to accept a lot more compromises. That's not a value judgment. Like, we're not talking down to the people that own those or have those, but we're stressing the realities that there are disadvantages to the manual transmission. There's certainly some advantages from a driving experience point of view. You're not necessarily going to be able to recreate that with the DSG, and if you like shifting, if you like using the clutch to change the load on the engine, if you like, I don't know, left foot braking you can do with DSG too. But there's certain things you can do with a manual transmission. It's more visceral, and so it's not a value judgment.
Clutch kicks in the snow or something like that. There's you have obviously full control over your manual transmission and your clutch actuation. So
yeah. So we're sorry if it came across as a slam on you. That wasn't our intention. We love our customers, all of our customers, regardless of what transmission they drive. But we're here to be honest and to tell you what we think.
And from a modification and you can take a BAB and FS4 with a DSG flash, go all the way up to stage 2 plus everything, and never touch the trans. You cannot do that with a manual car.
No,
you're into it another couple grand for clutch and labor, and at the very least, clutch flywheel and the labor to do it.
And I think that the most tongue-in-cheek jabbing I did was just the trauma of having had to tune and support cars with manual transmissions. It's a pain in the butt because you finally create a turbo kit that makes the power that the customer wants, and then the clutch is kind of always the thing that's in the way, and then you end up giving them clutch that holds the power, but it's horrible to drive, and it literally hurts their left leg trying to compress the pressure plate. And then it's a whole host of issues with manual transmissions. So all right, next question. Are you guys going to be porting blowers? We won't do it here. That's really not our business model to take in cores and port them. And we have done that in the past as a business. It was a very difficult business to run. It was a very difficult, our goal is always to deliver the product to the customer, and it's tough to do when you're doing that type of stuff. So there are other companies that have committed themselves to doing it. We really like Joker's performance. I think their porting's no joke. If that's not their slogan, it should be. But we're currently having them do some porting for us on a supercharger, which we will be putting in our in-house car for testing and validation purposes. Also, we have a lot of customers running ported blowers on our tunes, but ported blowers are one of these power adder devices that push you further and closer to the limit of what the motor can handle. And so by doing it ourselves, we're going to get a better understanding of, do we need a separate stage 2 plus tune for ported blowers, or can we validate up to a certain, boost pressure that's safe, So there's a lot more development that we can do.
Yep.
I would add if you want a super reliable ownership experience without any chance of engine failure, stick to the basic specifications of what our tune calls for.
And to that end too, you don't have to run a huge pulley with a ported blower. You can port the blower for more efficiency.
Yeah.
And run the 179 pulley, and you're going to have an overall more efficient setup. It's not, you don't have to keep cramming more boost through the thing.
Yeah, and if it's more efficient, your air temps will be lower, and everything won't be working harder or less hard. Will there be a B9 A4 TCU tune eventually go with the ECU tune that's in the works?
Yep.
Yes, definitely for the DSG application.
Yep, the DL3.
Absolutely.
Or 3D. Yeah, 3D1 or 3D2 on those.
What is the ideal wastegate duty cycle for the boost curve past peak PSI in the taper down region? What does Audi target on stock boost curves? Does it have any large impact on turbo longevity? It would if sustained at 100%, i.e. trying to hit an unachievable PSI for the size of the turbo at a given RPM.
Yeah, this it really depends on what exact application you're talking about here. Some of these turbos you can ping and they'll run forever. Like the old KO3s, almost every tune out there runs.
That's 100%,
like 100% for a large majority of the power band, and has for going on 10 plus years now. So it really depends on the application and what the turbo itself will deal with and what boost that equates to. On the smaller stuff, it's not going to be that much boost just because of the size of the impeller, compressor of the impeller, and it's very application dependent. In general, it's not something you can really measure the turbo life by in a global, way. They're all going to be different.
Yeah, generally, you don't ever want to run the turbo at 100%. They're not designed to do that, but certainly plenty of stuff out there does, and you can get a surprising amount of life and reliability out of a setup like that. It doesn't mean that the motor will like it or everything else down the line.
It really depends on the application.
Yeah. What items need to be dressed other than rods on a 1AT endurance road race motor?
I'm going to go and say oil system is a big one. It depends on the track. Keeping the oiling rock solid on those is pretty critical, and we say fuel delivery. It depends again on your power level. Is going to be a big thing too.
I would strongly recommend looking into. I can never remember that. AccuSump.
Yep.
Look into an AccuSump for any of these 1AT 2.0T motors. Once you start building up a lot of G forces in the corners, you can have oil starvation issues, which will immediately grenade your motor.
Yep.
Rods are a good idea if you're producing, over a certain amount of torque. I think typically we would say, 350 to 400 foot-pounds of torque in a 1AT. You should do rods. Mm-hmm. Stock pistons are actually pretty good in those. And again, if you're not running a ton of power, you don't necessarily need to do that. Depends on the chassis too. I mean, most cars that came with 1ATs, the motor is the least of your concern. It's on track, as far as you're going to need brakes, certainly suspension modifications, tires, things like that. And I think, on track, the more intercooler, the better. I don't know what car you have, but I would recommend a tube and fin intercooler versus a bar and plate. They're lighter and they will shed the heat faster on track. That's typically what we run. We used to run Evo8 stock intercoolers are really nice. They're surprisingly big. They're tube and fin. Like an intercooler this big weighs like 10 pounds, where a bar and plate would weigh like 40 pounds. And you're putting that right on the nose of the car usually. So, but yeah, so I think that covers it. But if you have more info, feel free to give it to us. And certainly if you're making 800 wheel, that's a whole nother story than if you're on a KO4. If E85 in my city is more than the E70% mark for winter blend, is it still okay to be blending to E40?
It's more at the E70 mark. So yeah, winter blends on E85 can drop down a bit depending on.
I mean, ultimately you want it to be E40.
Yeah. So
regardless.
So the question is that going to be require too much ethanol to blend with 93? No, you just have to blend. It's down to E70 because it doesn't have as much ethanol in it. So you just need a little more of that. From that into your tank compared to your 93. So this is why having a gauge is really nice to verify where you're at on these, because in cities like this they can change quickly.
You gotta get a gauge. I mean, they're not even that expensive. They're under. We sell a kit for some applications for $350, and I understand there's even cheaper ones out there. What is the blower on the table for? Well, it looks cool, and we were just talking about supercharged blowers. And we wanted to mention, so this is the 034 Motorsport Super Duper Charger. This is the cast aluminum housing. It's pretty free flowing.
Tap it. That one's actually aluminum.
Yeah. And we are getting these cast. This is again. This is currently a prototype, but there's a couple features which you won't be able to see very easily. But one is we initially engineered some reliefs here. So there's a bolt that comes through and a nut on the back here. And so we put a relief in the corner here to give more room for that, but it ended up protruding out on the inside. And so after
it was done for some installation considerations, which once we got it in the car and had some more time with it, we decided we could do fine without having passed through holes there.
So we got rid of all that, and we're actually going to be threading these holes. So now the bolt comes through this way and just threads into this flange, and that way we can get rid of all that. So it'll be a nicer, cleaner, and there's a pair on this side too that'll be gone. So it'll be a cleaner, nicer installation, and we don't have an exact date on these, but we're a couple months out from having the production units back, and we'll be releasing the Super Duper kit, which is our throttle body upgrade kit.
Yep.
Is there a ZF8 tune in the works? Yes. So we have been selling one for quite a while as a beta. If you're interested in doing the beta, it's a very good price right now. And once you have the beta file, you will continue to get production updates into the future for free. So it'll ultimately result in you getting our TCU tune for about half price. The file that we have now is good, so it's not like going to be a nightmare or anything.
There's more we want to do with it. It's just
DFA, not B.
Oh, does it say?
Which
It did say, but if I know the screen name, I think that was a B.
Okay. Well, we have one for B8.
The B9 we're working on.
And B9 we're working on. So
the B9S4.
Yeah, we'll have one for B9 as well. So if you have a BA1, we have it. If you have B9, hang tight.
We have flashed ours. It's in the works.
Yeah, we're working on all the B9 stuff right now. What do you think about the MQB DQ250 versus the DQ381 as far as power holding capability and all-around performance? Is the DQ381 better all around? I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen them really. Personally, I haven't seen them push super far on the 381s. The 250. It depended on what your application was. I ran mine forever with almost 500 foot-pounds of torque through it.
Yeah.
Without.
I want to say the 381's like more refined, yep. As far as it's newer technology and stuff. But as far as power handling, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of it's all about torque with those. So
yeah,
and those are generally coupled all to four-cylinder stuff. So not the biggest torque producers, whereas the 250 was on like the VR6 and VR6 turbos as well.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the newer DSGs seem to shift nicer and nicer. The R8 has the best shifting DSG I've driven.
Yeah, and that's basically a DQ 500, which is basically a DQ 381. I mean, they're very similar on the hood.
But, from that to the way it's programmed, it's by far the best DSG shifting experience. Can you get Racing Line to make a DSG cooler for the gearbox in the B8S4? Yeah, so we're talking to them about that. I don't know. I guess we would have to ask them about B8. Mark, if you want to write that down.
Mark, add that to the list.
But we are working with Racing Line on a line of Audi-specific products. Racing Line has been very Volkswagen-centric in the past. They just started introducing some new Audi parts in the last year or so. And so now that we're collaborating, we can give them engineering IP freely. And vice versa. So, but that's a good request. Thank you for your request. We take all customer product requests seriously. A lot of our product ideas come from customers like that. So thank you for asking about that. Updates on 3.0T high pressure fuel pump upgrade. Yeah, so we have received some production samples from our vendor. We don't make OEM level high pressure fuel pumps here, but so we are currently starting to test these pumps, and we'll be doing some long-term testing.
Yep, we have one in RS4 already.
Yeah, and so that's where things are at. But we are diligently working on it, and the program is moving forward, and we'll keep you posted. ETA on B8.5 S5 springs. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't have a solid ETA on it, so we'll have to talk to engineering at our. I think we have a meeting today.
It's today, yeah.
Yeah, we have an engineering meeting today, so I'll get an update on that. If you're porting a blower for the in-house car, will you be releasing a tune for it?
The tunes we have already do not. You don't need to run a separate tune for a ported blower. I mean, the efficiencies you're gaining are not enough to the point where you're going to need an entire tune just for the blower.
Yeah.
So that's.
I think, like I mentioned, if we feel that some other tune would be beneficial, we would consider it.
Yep.
But it would have to be a lot different for us to do that, because for every new file and tune we have, it requires a whole another silo of support just for that. So whenever we make an update to files or box code porting and all that, it becomes a whole thing. So we don't create new files unless there's a real reason to do that. And as Nate said, our current file works great. All the world record runs are with our file with ported blowers. Mm-hmm. So, you're good as far as that goes. If money was no issue, what motor swap would you do to any Audi? Off the top of my head, I would love to put a Daza in an R8. I think that would be really fun. And it's not like that would be that expensive.
Right.
Maybe like a Concorde jet turbine in an Audi R8, that would be really expensive. But a Daza, it's $15,000 motor, and you're in business. So I think that would be cool. And
the weight savings and the power output and everything just gets so much, it goes to a better place.
Give that thing like 800 horsepower, and that would be a lot of fun. You have anything?
That was honestly similar to where I was going to go for the Audi platform stuff. Yeah, the R8 platform is just epic, and then you get a higher output motor in there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Rotary already?
No rotaries. Sorry. Shut down. There's so much rotary BS out there. I actually grew up with rotaries. Like, you guys weren't even born when there was rotaries.
Another.
Yeah.
Actually, undertaking.
Of course it is. Yeah.
The new CX5 is a hybrid. It's a rotary.
Yeah. Yep. No, I remember when RX8s came out.
Yeah, I drove one of the new ones when it came out, and it was.
I had just finished some modification to my 10-valve turbo swap on my 80TQ, and I raced an RX8 and destroyed it. And I felt really good about myself, because I think that car was like $70,000 and my car was $3,000. and the look on the guy's face was totally worth it. But it was just a little measly rotary engine. So, but no, we don't do rotary stuff. Although I think they're really cool motors.
The concept is really neat. It's
That's
just
neat,
the the kind of the very outside of the box.
Have you seen the meme going around? It's just like it's a rotor from whatever, some rotary motor, and there's just an intake valve like wedged into the rotor, and it's like, what's wrong with this picture? I like that. All right. Thoughts on the Mk8 GTI's turbo being almost the same size as the Mark 6 GLI EA888.3s?
The non-FB.
So, in other words, that it's so small?
That they're similar.
I mean, it's a Honeywell. It's a similar platform.
It's a different turbo.
The wheel constructions are different, and the dynamics are. So yeah, we'll need to see it.
Yeah, we haven't ever seen one of those cars, much less tested one.
Yep.
But we do understand that the Mk8 platform is quite similar to the previous generation Mark 7. So a lot of the Mark 7 parts will cross over to the Mk8. There's some tweaks on some parts, but at least the turbo is different, so that gives us tuners something to play with and update from what's already currently available. So like turbo inlets and turbo muffler deletes and all that stuff. Downpipes, it's a totally different architecture turbo. Let's see. Do you have experience building RS3 DAZA engine yet, specifically drop-in rods pistons? So we are currently building the motor for our in-house DAZA. We sent the motor out to a place in Chicago for the sleeving. The rods and pistons aren't anything hard to source. There's a number of companies that offer it.
Yeah, there's not really. I would never.
The sleeving's the issue on these motors,
right, and I would never sell anything as a drop-in. It's going to need to go to a machine shop. It's going to need to get built, and
they drop in to the extent of that. The rod fits with the factory crank and stuff, but the balancing and everything still has to be done. And in some cases there's clearancing and whatnot. But that's the biggest challenge with these DAZAs, because you don't want to just go down to the Grease Monkey machine shop down the street and have them try to put these sleeves in. You need to basically CNC these things into the block. They're very tight tolerances.
Yep.
And you could easily trash a block if you're even off by a thousandths, one way or the other. So that's why even our normal machine shop, which is a very good machine shop, we spoke to them about doing it, and we all agreed that since they didn't have the proper engine block CNC machine, that we should send it out to someone who has done it. So I know there's a number of companies starting to specialize, and I don't think we'll get into engine building. Again, that's something we've done in the past, and that's not what we're good at. We're good at engineering products, bringing them to market, making them work. But we'll keep you guys posted. I mean, we should do a social media post when we get that motor back, and it's certainly a service we could offer anyone who wants to do it through us.
Yeah.
And of course, we could install it in the car and do all that too. So, and we're going to be putting a TTE turbo on that car for fun and shenanigans, and not sure we'll do a product with it, but we very well may. So, is there going to be a 4.02 tune, 4.0 tune from you guys? Yes. We are not working on it right now, but it's one of our upcoming projects. We also have a really exciting 4.0T project that we'll be announcing in the future. And I believe we're calling it S4.0T, just as a hint. But so we'll be getting our hands very dirty with the 4.0T. In that project, we will also be bringing on a development car, and our service department manager, Sonu, owns an S6 already. So we will have at least 3 cars in house for development. So definitely look for some pretty serious 4.0T product development this year from us. Mounts, nothing new to report. We're waiting for the new updated sample, which I believe is supposed to be here soon, and then we will evaluate that and then do some testing. So I don't see that product being released before the summer, which sucks. But if you can hang on for a little longer, that's unfortunately we can't.
Yeah, we can't. We can only go as fast as possible. We're not holding anything up.
Yeah. Big brake kit suggestion for B8 S4. I mean, not necessarily. I would wholeheartedly recommend anything from Brembo, Alcon, AP Racing. I would put Stop Tech as a good option, although I'm not given the other 3 brands. I would say I would put those higher up the list. There's some weird off-brand stuff. Generally for a brake kit like that, I'd be careful of what I chose. Racing Line does not have a kit, but their brake kits are excellent. I know who makes their calipers. It's a very reputable company. All the parts in that kit are top notch. But I'm pretty sure they will be releasing like a B9, S4, and RS5 brake kit. And for newer Audi models, probably the RS6 and stuff like that. What ethanol content analyzer is Nate running on his S4? It's ours.
Yeah,
it's our kit.
It involves to what we're testing, but yeah, it's ours.
So you can check out our kit on the website now. Is that harness is different?
Just it's just a gauge and it's nothing. It's not a kit. It's the same. It's the same parts.
The same parts. Okay.
Yeah,
but it's our kit's based on the Innovate Motorsports kit. So there have been some 4.0T swaps into B8 S4s. Are you planning to make some parts for these kind of swaps? Yes. So this is the B8 S 4.0T project that I'm talking about. Will move us in that direction. We don't want to make any promises on exactly what products would be made available, but because we haven't done it yet, we have to get in there and do the engineering and see do these parts make sense to replicate and reproduce. But stay tuned. We did the B9 S4 Springs ride. I still want to retain a comfortable ride. Well, we've got the springs for you, buddy. They ride awesome. They ride really nice. And they handle excellent as well. So it's the kind of spring kit that you could take on track, and you could go very fast on track with great car control and handling through the corners, and then you can drive home and drive over rough road surfaces and even hit a pothole here and there. And so I actually think the B9 S4 with our springs is more comfortable and certainly more fun to drive than on stock springs. Stock springs are almost like too soft and too compliant. So, I think the way our springs ride is how the car should have come from the factory. It is very no compromise. The car doesn't feel crashy or rattle. Or anything like that, and like all the interior bits aren't getting loose and wriggling. But the key is that makes the spring work is we're optimizing the spring rate and height for the stock dampers, and it really does transform the car. Just last week we put our Dynamic Plus springs in our in-house Mk8 GTI, which was bone stock, and the car now has our Stage 1 tune, which is great, but it doesn't really affect the handling. And the car now has our springs and our rear sway bar. And that's it. And it's transformed. It's completely transformed. It went from just kind of this wallowy pig to this fun little, throw around hot hatch. And I was driving in one morning, and there's kind of one of the roads, the slow lane gets really beat up by trucks and stuff. So there's some potholes and rough surface, and so I just whipped over into that lane and drove the whole way up the hill in that lane. You know, going slightly over the speed limit, and just to really feel like how crashy and bad is it. And it still rode really nice over all that stuff. It didn't feel, again, crashy or rattly. And normally I would just be in the left lane, but even that's why we do this stuff. We test these products. So I wholeheartedly recommend it. I think you'll be very happy with any of our springs.
We're not too gentle on the stuff we
No.
run through here.
Do you have any South African dealers? Yes, we do. RMZ, I believe, and Cafe. Who's the?
I'll throw our dealer locator and we can
Throw our deal. Yeah, you can look on our VW Cafe. Yeah, but check out our dealer locator on our website. You can see all of our dealers worldwide. You just put in your address and it pops up. IS38 GTI tune. Yes, something we will be doing on our in-house GTI. It's something we should have done years ago, but we have never gotten around to it. No ETA, but it's on our current product development hit list.
Yeah, we were just talking about it last week.
ETA on B8 Q5 strut brace. We don't have a date, although we are currently working on the first article prototype, which will be a production prototype. It won't be. We're out of the prototyping phase, so it's a first article production part.
Yeah, validation time.
And once we confirm that, we will go into production. So I'd say it's probably maybe like March, April timeframe. I don't foresee having any issues with the production sample. So it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
I think we really feel like everyone's going to love it. Have you unlocked the ability to tune the B9 ZF8?
Yep.
Yes. We are doing B9 tuning, ECU and TCU tuning currently, and we have unlocked the ECU. We've cracked it. We even have hired a calibrator on staff who has a great track record tuning the MG1 B9 ECU. So that's progressing quickly. What are we doing? 11.4. Okay.
Yep, we're doing all right.
Someone says, "Hey Javad, I see you're into DIY hi-fi. What aspects of building speakers and building high-performance cars are the same, and what is different?" Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I was really into speaker stuff when I was a kid. Like in high school, I did a lot of car audio, and after I got kind of bored with car audio, I started doing home audio and building home speakers. But this was in the 90s, so there wasn't a lot of technology to really help you do it. There were like these cardboard calculators where you would like slide the cardboard, and you'd have some of the different Thiel small parameters, and it would tell you what box size. Yeah, I mean, it's basically like these like little decoder rings that were, they kind of point you in the right direction. And so I kind of just on a whim one day, because I got a new TV at home. This was like 2015, and I was like thinking about adding some speakers to it. And so I just decided to go online and start looking around. And how the DIY speaker building hobby had progressed over the last 15 years just blew my mind. And the things like when I was a kid, the things like JBL and Harman Kardon and Klipsch or whoever professionals, they had these laboratories, and so you couldn't access that. But now, 20 years later, you could literally have similar types of tools and resources in your home, and a lot of it was free that really smart people online had developed. So I kind of jumped in head first. And to answer your question, I talk a lot about compromises. Compromise comes as a big component of designing a speaker. There's all these different theories and tactics that you can implement, but each one has a positive and negative effect. And so there's always, well, if you do this, you'll improve these two things, and you'll make a negative impact to this one thing. Is that a good choice you want to make? And ultimately, you're working at optimizing these compromises and minimizing the negatives while trying to maximize the positives. And it's very similar to what we do with car performance. For example, a suspension spring. Is it better to have a lower center of gravity? Yes. But does that mean your shock is now bottomed out? Yes. So you lower the center of gravity, which is good, but now you have no dampening, which is bad. And so there's all these decisions that have to be made, and they're very complex. They're not explained by conventional wisdom, rules of thumb, certainly common sense either. These are intricate dynamics that interplay with each other that have to be carefully considered, modeled, tested, validated. And so I think if you have the right mindset, you can apply that methodology to designing speakers, designing car parts, building a race car, to cooking.
Many things.
To a degree, to human relationships, although I won't get into that because someone will probably think that I'm trying to science friendships. But to a degree, you can. There's a certain way you respond to someone, and there's a certain reaction you get back. And so things become it's pretty predictable.
Yeah, so many things in life are formulaic to at some basic level.
Yeah. But I think at the core of what I love about all the things that I'm into is creating. To me, creating something is one of the most satisfying things that I can do, the most rewarding things, especially when that creation solves a problem. To identify that problem, to evaluate the possible solutions, to implement it correctly, to test it, to validate it, to have other people test and validate it. So a lot of the speakers that I design, I publish and document the designs, and other people build them. And then I see them building them, and they get the same satisfaction that I did from that solution. Similar with cooking, I publish a lot of my recipes and cooking techniques. Certainly every day, seeing the happiness and satisfaction of our customers here at 034 Motorsport, that makes me incredibly happy. So I'm not really motivated by making lots of money, although certainly do try to make a good living so that I can provide for my family and that I can retire someday and all that. But really what drives me is creating solutions that solve problems. And once it's recognized by other people, I think that to me really closes the loop on the value of that whole process. But if you're interested in speaker building, I have a Facebook group called DIY Loudspeaker Project Pad. I actually see a lot of our customers join it. When someone applies to the page, I can see what other groups they're in. I think just yesterday, someone was in like one of the RS3 groups that I approved. But cars are fun, but speaker building, you can do it at home, in your garage. There's no grease, which is really nice. Sawdust, you can kind of vacuum it on. And
It's a request now for an 034 cookbook.
So anyways, great question. Thank you. I could talk all day about that, but
he actually replied to thank you, and he thinks the magic is in the basically the iteration of the product, continuing improvement.
Yeah, continual improvement is key, and the only way you can improve is by really accurately evaluating what actually makes the improvement. I mean, a lot of what we do in the group is debunking conventional wisdom or rules of thumbs. And it's like, yeah, no, I get why someone made a rule out of that, but it's totally missing the actual dynamic. Then once you put in other factors, that all goes out the window. So, all right, B9 RS5 tuning in the works. Yes, that is part of our B9 MG1 2.9 3.0T tuning effort. We are doing those tunes somewhat in tandem together because there's a lot of similarities between the two. Same ECU. Who are the two of you? New viewer doesn't know who either. Okay, cool. I'm Javad Shadzi, founder and CEO of 034 Motorsport. And Nate, this is Nate Stewart.
Like customer number 3 or 4.
Yeah. Nate and I have known each other for over 20 years.
Yep.
We've had the pleasure of working together for 16, 17 years. Yeah. And we, well, I run the company, so I'm involved in a lot of stuff that goes on. And my goal for doing these live feeds is to be available to the market and to the customers. I think, the last thing I want 034 Motorsport to be is some nondescript brand that just exists on the internet without any real people or connection.
Yeah. No, we're here for, the stuff you guys love as much as we do. So all of us drive silly cars. We all eat and breathe this stuff.
Yeah, we're enthusiasts. We would be our own customers if we weren't working here, and neither of us are necessarily thrilled to be behind or in front of a camera. I know I'm more comfortable with it than Nate is, but just to make the point that we're doing this to make ourselves available to the customers. You guys can ask us anything you want.
Yep.
Sometimes people ask things that are negative, and we respond honestly to it.
So wait, you never said who Nate is.
Yeah.
You said he's a customer.
I'm a customer.
That's it?
Yeah.
No, I did. We did say who it was.
No, I'm my current title is Director of Engineering.
His position. Yes.
So
Nate is the director.
I oversee more and more. It's very much software focused. I have a little input here and there on the hardware stuff, but Mark has kind of picked up that torch a lot this year.
Yeah.
So it's I'm focused almost entirely on the tuning side of things.
Yeah, and I work very closely with the hardware team. My office is right next door to the hardware engineering room, and we all work closely together. But yeah, Nate's our director of engineering. At one point, Nate did all the basic engineering on all of our products up till probably about 6 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, all of our CNC parts, all the
CAD,
stuff, all the engineering, some of the machining a while back. It's like running machines as well in between dyno runs, and kind of jack of all trades in some aspects. And
so that's the first time someone's asked that, which is interesting. So maybe we're reaching a wider audience. Hopefully that was helpful. If you'd like to know anything else about us, please feel free to ask. Wow, a lot of questions. Let's see what we can get through.
Still streaming in here.
Anything new Mk8 GTI related? The one thing I can think of is our coil hold down product that we released a few months back. I wish we would have released that 10 years ago. It's a really cool product, but it's basically a heatsink plate that won't fit Mk6. That's more. Yeah. Okay.
Camber plates though.
We are working on that. So sorry. Take the whole thing. That's a 1AT product. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I just really want to sell more of these. But you can still buy it and just look at it, but it won't fit your Mk6. We are working on Mk5, Mk6 fixed camber plates. Those should be to market in the next month or two. And this is a strut top that replaces your factory strut mount with a new billet strut mount that has a set amount of camber built into it. I think it gives you like an additional 1 to 1.5 degrees depending on the car. So you should be able to get into the 2 to 2.5 degree range.
Yep.
I don't know if we have a lot else coming for the Mk6. We will tackle products if they come up.
Yeah, the KO4 file is still on our radar.
Wheels,
wheels.
Our ZTF wheels fit the Mk6 really nicely. We have Sonu has a set on his car. They fit beautifully. B9 Q5 2.8T intake. That's not on our list.
No, I think it's in the.
I don't know. We just went through it. I think it is. Just make sure it's in there.
The Q stuff is always later, just because
it's
so much smaller to uptake modifications.
Yeah. Thoughts on killer chillers for 3.0 TS4? Can they replace an upgraded heat exchanger, or should they be used with an upgraded one?
I've never actually run one personally, so it takes a AC loop basically through it. Uses in the AC compressor as the supplemental cooler for the intercooler core. So
the coolant runs through it as well.
It takes that whole system.
Yeah.
Uses the drive from the AC to help cool the charger. I've never run one. I can't speak to that. Stuff like that, may work. I again haven't tested it. We try to stay away from the kind of fringe or the edge case stuff that where we can't tune and support that for the vast majority of our customers. So it's not something I can, I have a lot of time to just put on the car and test. So yeah, I can't answer that directly to know how well and how much it cools.
Someone's asking, this is a cool question. I've been a mechanic in the Navy for 10 years, experience in leadership, project management, and public speaking as well. What do you look for in potential candidates for employment at 034? I'll just answer really quickly. Certainly, we evaluate every candidate for how well can they do the job. The more experience you have, the better. The more that you've done the job well and can show that you have a track record of doing that, the better. But at least half of what we're looking for has nothing to do with experience. It has to do with the values that each candidate holds. And in this room, you can't see them, but we have signs about all of our company values for employees, and they're things such as professional, accountable, positive attitude, driven, customer focused, and team players. And so we evaluate each candidate through those core values. For example, in order to be accountable, you would have to be able to admit that you've made a mistake and that you've done something wrong. And so during the interview process, we would want to know about times that you've made a mistake and what you did wrong, to see that do you have a real understanding of how you contributed to the problem. Really at 034 Motorsport, we don't want to be having arguments with people trying to convince each other that they were wrong. We really want people to come forward, be able to self-analyze and quickly arrive at these conclusions, learn and move forward. Otherwise, we would just spend all day just arguing about stuff like that.
Yeah, and you have to expect there's going to be mistakes. It's all part of the process, especially when you're developing and pushing the envelope.
Yeah,
mistakes come with the territory, and you have to own up to them and learn from it.
Yeah, and this isn't a place that will crucify people for making mistakes. Certainly not the first time. The 10th time,
same mistake over
5th or 10th time, yeah, that's going to be a problem. But I think mainly what we're looking for is like low drama people that aren't toxic. We just have a zero tolerance policy for toxicity, for disrespect, for gossip and all the things that kind of break people apart and break up the company or the organization. That locker room mentality that sometimes you see at some companies.
There's no hazings. There's no
hazing.
Yeah, there's no
teasing. We just don't want people walking around here feeling jilted or offended or disrespected in any way. There's no reason. We all spend most of our lives here, and we're here more than anywhere else. We spend our days here, so we want to work with other people that respect us and who can admit when they're wrong, for example. So that's a big one, and we've had people that were really good at the job that just couldn't get along with other people, and at the end of the day, we'd rather have less experienced people who are willing to learn, who can really get along with other people, than really experienced people who are toxic and constantly so
yeah. I mean, if you're the biggest rock star at your job, but you bring a dozen people around you down by just the way you are, you're a negative impact on the company. It doesn't matter how good you are at the one thing.
Yeah, and we have a high standard for work ethic. This isn't a place to kind of fly under the radar or cover your ass.
Yeah, coasting doesn't work very well.
Yeah, that's not going to work because everyone here is working really hard and giving their best, and we can't expect those people to work with other people who are just trying to get by. that's not the kind of culture we want to cultivate here. So hopefully that was helpful. I think you'll find that we have a much higher standard for employee values than a lot of companies.
People are responding, yeah, there's too much toxicity in the car community. Yeah. It's
well,
tough. There's a lot of toxicity.
It's all
in
over
every
right.
community.
It's all over right now. So for us, we want this to be a positive place where we can be productive and be on the same page. We're all on the same team. So, like for example, we don't want the shipping department to have a vendetta against the sales department because sales wants them to ship stuff faster and they don't want to whatever. You see this stuff at a lot of companies, and we just don't have time for that here. And that's I spend a lot of time here, and that's how I choose to spend my days, is around cool people who are fun, who are respectful of each other, and who like to be happy.
Yep.
So, all right, I think we're out of time, right?
Yeah.
Great questions today, everybody. We really appreciate it. Maybe there's getting into a slightly different crowd. Like maybe people have had lunch, and so they're more.
Yeah, or they're sitting down.
Their sugar levels are.
Some good stuff coming.
All right, thanks everybody. We have a bunch of questions that we'll tackle next week. Thanks as always for joining us. We really appreciate it. See you next week. Cheers.
Thanks.